Today we're going to get into solving rational equations. So up until now, we have not had any equal signs. We've been multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting, no equal signs. Things are a little bit different when there's an equal sign. There's two types we're going to learn today. The first type is solving equations that are just fraction equals fraction, like numbers 1 and 2. And then the other type is problems like 3 and 4 that have fractions plus some other stuff in there. The nice thing, if you have fraction equals fraction, you can cross multiply. I think when you learn cross multiplication for the first time, then you want to try to use it for everything because it's like, ooh, cross multiply, ooh, cross multiply. But you only actually can use cross multiplication when you have a fraction equals a fraction. If you have anything else, you cannot use cross multiply. It only works over an equal sign. So, number 1, before you cross multiply, any numerator or denominator that has addition or subtraction, you need to put parentheses around it. That way you will distribute properly when you cross multiply. The order for cross multiplication doesn't matter, so I'm going to do 2x equals, and then I would distribute 1 times that and 1 times that, which would just be x squared minus x. So, step 1, cross multiply. Step 2, solve. Anytime you have x squared and x, you probably need to get 0 on one side so that you can factor and solve. So, I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides to get 0 equals x squared minus 3x. Does anybody remember how to factor x squared minus 3x? Since it's not 3 numbers, it's not a trinomial. When it's 2 numbers, check to see if it's difference of 2 squares. This is not difference of 2 squares because it's not x squared and a number. What do x squared and 3x have in common? An x. This is greatest common factor, factoring. They have an x in common. Pull that x outside of the parentheses, and you have 0 equals x times x minus 3. Okay. To solve this, let's do the easy one first. If I cover up the x, we have 0 equals x minus 3. What would be the solution for that? What number minus 3 would give us 0? 3. So one of our solutions is 3. Now, cover up the other half. What does it say? X equals 0. 0 equals x. X equals 0. So your two solutions are 0 and 3. The last step is check the answer. The key is you cannot have zeros in any of your denominators. Would either of these solutions make a 0 in the denominator? 1 divided by x, if I plugged 0 in there, that would definitely be 0. So that's an extraneous solution, and x equals 3 is our only actual solution. Number 2 is the same type. First thing you need to do is get parentheses around any numerator or denominator that has addition or subtraction. Then cross multiply. The order that you cross multiply really does not matter. On your own, I'd like you to pause the video, double distribute, FOIL, whatever on the left side, distribute on the right side, get one side equal to 0 so that we can factor and solve. Try that part on your own. So after you double distribute or FOIL, distribute, get 0 on one side, you should have x squared minus 9x plus 14. We need to factor that. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us 14 and add up to negative 9. It's probably 2 and 7. In order to get positive 14, they either both need to be positive or they both need to be negative. Negative 2 and negative 7 would add up to negative 9, so they are both negative. Once we have this factored, our solutions are positive 2 and positive 7. Would either of those answers create a 0 in the denominator of the original problem? 2 minus 1 is not 0, 7 minus 1 is not 0, so both of these solutions work. When we have rational equations where there's fractions and whole numbers or multiple fractions being added or subtracted, we need to use a shortcut called the least common denominator. And that sounds a lot more difficult than it actually is. Your first step is going to be write this out, kind of spread out, and if anything needs to be factored, like if any denominator needs to be factored, factor any denominator. Both of these denominators look fine, so I'm just going to write this nice and spread out. So I've got my 2x over x plus 3, a nice space, equals 1, a nice space, and then attach that negative to the 6, negative 6 over x plus 3, and a space. The shortcut that we're going to use is multiplying every term of the equation by something. If you multiply every single thing in the equation by the same thing, you don't change the equation. It's kind of like if I had 2x plus 3 equals 9. If I multiplied this and made it 4x plus 6 equals 18, it's still going to work. It's still going to give us the same x value. If you multiply every single thing in this equation by 2, it's still going to be a valid equation. The trick is, what are we going to multiply this equation by? We are going to multiply this equation by the denominator. The denominator that I see in here is x plus 3, so I'm going to multiply every single numerator, every single term, by x plus 3. You don't have to multiply top and bottom, you just have to multiply each term by x plus 3. And the reason why is that this is going to completely wipe out the fractions. So in this first fraction, do you see anything that would cancel in this first fraction? The x plus 3's cancel, leaving us with simply 2x. Then I see an equal sign. This one, there's no fraction, so we'd have to distribute. Thankfully, distributing a 1 is just going to make it x plus 3. In this next fraction, do you see anything that will cancel? The x plus 3 cancels, leaving us with negative 6. Does that, in purple, look like an easier equation to solve than what we started with? Basically, we completely eliminated the fractions. We wiped them out. So now this is 2x equals x minus 3. I would subtract x on both sides to get x equals negative 3. Last step is still check your solutions. Would an x value of negative 3 make any of our original denominators equal 0? What is negative 3 plus 3? 0. So that solution doesn't actually work. We did all that work, and then the solution doesn't actually work. If our solution doesn't work, that means there are no solutions. Okay, number 4. Our first step is to factor any denominators and spread your work out so you have room to see what's going on. So I've got 3x minus 2 over x minus 2. I didn't have to factor x minus 2, I just put it in parentheses so that if we multiply anything else, we can see where that factor is. Leave a space, equal sign, 6 over, can I factor x squared minus 4? X plus 2, x minus 2. Leave a space, plus 1, leave a space. Okay. What denominators do you see? X minus 2, x plus 2, and another x minus 2. Excuse me. You don't want to use any repeated denominators. So what distinct denominators do you see, or what factors do you see in the denominators? We see an x minus 2. We also see an x plus 2. So I'm going to multiply by x minus 2 and x plus 2. That is known as the least common denominator. Basically, that means if there's 2 x minus 2's, don't multiply by 2 of them, only multiply by 1 of them, because it will then be covered in both fractions. Okay, now the fun part. In this first fraction, if you ignore all this other stuff, does anything cancel in this first fraction? The x minus 2 cancels, leaving us with 3x minus 2 times x plus 2. You will eventually have to double distribute, FOIL that. Then we see an equal sign. What cancels in the next fraction? X plus 2 cancels, x minus 2 cancels, leaving us with 6. And if we distributed the 1, it wouldn't change anything, so we have x minus 2, x plus 2. Okay, we have now eliminated all of the fractions. So now I want you to pause the video and try this a little bit on your own. You need to double distribute, combine like terms, get one side equal to 0. So do that part on your own. Once you have stuff equals 0, play the video again. Seriously, pause the video. Do this on your own. I'm serious. When you double distribute or FOIL here, you end up with this string, which simplifies into this. X minus 2, x plus 2 will multiply into x squared minus 4. Combine like terms, and then get rid of these on the right side, get 0 on that right side. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to factor something that has a number in front of the x squared, so it'd be really nice if these three things all had 2 in common. Do they all have 2 in common? They do. So we can factor out 2. And then we can factor whatever's left. So I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give me -3. So that must be 1 and 3. They have to add up to +2. So it would need to be x minus 1 and x plus 3. So what are my solutions? X equals, if you basically cover all of this stuff up, x minus 1 equals 0, x would have to be 1. If you cover this stuff up, what number plus 3 is 0? -3. That 2 really doesn't affect anything, because is it possible for 2 to equal 0? No, there's no letter there. There's no variable there, so it doesn't change anything. Your solutions are 1 and -3. Check both solutions in the original problem. 1 minus 2, not 0. 1 squared minus 4, not 0. -3 minus 2, not 0. -3 squared minus 4, still not 0. So both of those solutions are good.